Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes who grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we've got an episode full of tall tales, and if early production signs or anything, probably technical difficulties. But before we get into all of that, let me throw it to your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
I've got a smirk on my face right now for those that aren't watching the YouTube version of this because Miles looks really happy right now, but I feel like behind the smile, there's all this pent up rage right now at our PCs, or laptops. I guess I should be technically correct with our disastrous computers, but that's okay. We're here. We're ready to go. We're here to talk about Tall Tales. I have a confession to make right off the bat, Miles.
Okay.
The last 3 or 4 weeks have been the smallest amount of notes I've ever taken for an episode.
That doesn't surprise me.
It's like where I'm at points I'm writing something down just to have something written down that I'm just going to bring that up naturally, but I want to make sure that I have at least one note for this part. Was that just me? Am I losing my touch, or are you having similar things going on here?
No, I understand. There's been a couple of times in the last few weeks, especially, I guess it's a little unfair because last week I had the issue with the DVD commentary, so I couldn't even get the normal notes that I have for that. But we definitely seem to have hit a stride where there's not as many, I guess, behind the scenes stuff. I don't know if that is I don't know if that's like a result of just the fact that the show has now been on for so long. It's kind of almost like an engine, like it's just moving down the train, down the tracks, if that makes sense. There's going to be less drama the more secure The Simpsons gets, I think. But yeah, in general, I would agree. There's been less noteworthy things to talk about in these last few episodes. Maybe a point that we should discuss next week on our season 12 finale spectacular.
I honestly, we could dive into it more next week, like you said, but I think it's just the episodes are more straightforward now. Like it's less. There's still jokes that you might have to explain a little bit, but I feel like everything's kind of just, even when we're being fantastical or tall tale-ish in this episode, everything's pretty much straightforward, and so you just take it at face value and move on for right now, at least for the last few weeks. But we got to talk about this episode first before we get on to the other one that I'm not going to mention again. So let me throw it back to you officially so we can start. The man, the myth, the moonshiner. It is Miles.
I'm now looking back over the IMDb list of all the previous episodes and trying to think of the last time I had what I felt was a profound piece of knowledge to drop.
Oh man, season 3 maybe?
Oh no, dude. I mean, we're the farthest back I would go, and maybe this was the turning point for us. Maybe after our episode with Al Jean, Homer, we were just inside it out. I don't know.
The last time I had a full page of notes was the Trilogy of Error.
Okay, I mean, that wasn't that long ago, is it?
No, and then the 3 episodes before that, maybe even 4, it's all short again. Just looking at my notes here. So, hadn't been a lot lately.
All right, well, then that should definitely be something that we'll discuss on our finale spectacular, which is surprisingly coming up. Somehow that's next, because we're currently discussing the season 12 finale, which is Simpsons Tall Tales, which originally aired on May 20th, 2001. You know what? I didn't know where to put this, so now seems like the appropriate time. We'll get it out of the way right off the top. Interesting note on the IMDb trivia for this episode, because this was the last episode of The Simpsons to air before September 11th, 2001. So when The Simpsons returns in season 13, it returns to a world that is completely changed, which is just weird to think about, honestly, in the sense that, for one, it just doesn't feel like we've gone far enough into The Simpsons to have gotten to 9/11. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel like, oh my God, we've moved. I mean, looking at it, we've done this now for almost 6 years. we've done a lot of episodes of The Simpsons, dude, and there's a lot more to do, which is crazy. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting thing to note from the trivia, and it'll be very interesting to see what or if there are any noticeable changes to just the writing, the style, the comedy, any reference or anything of that nature. I do know that the next episode we'll be talking about to kick off season 13 is Treehouse of Horror 12, so should be interesting on that regard. But getting back into this, the chalkboard gag for this episode is I am not supposed to be 21 years old, which if you do the math on that, he absolutely is. Further weird, that just proves even further about how long we've been doing this at this point.
And how long the Simpsons have been doing it at this point, and it's only season 12.
Yeah, and they obviously, at this point they're going for 3 times. I'm assuming they make it all the way through the 36. There are 3 times as many episodes as seasons as we've covered so far. It's nuts.
Bart would be closing in on Homer age by now in today's standards.
I think that's accurate. Yeah. I mean, it's 2022. Yeah. He's not far at all. I mean, going 1989 to 2022,
like 34 or 35,
33.
Like that.
Yeah. It'd be 22 plus 11, that's I think, right?
He's in 4th grade, right? So it'd be 12. Is it 12 in 4th grade?
Oh yeah. It's 33 pluses actually. So it'd be 43.
Well, if he's 21 in 2001, so you would add 22 years or 21 years to that.
Wow, dude. That's wild. All right. Now that we've all depressed everybody in our audience today, ourselves more than anybody, we do get a recycled but very fun couch gag for this episode. It's where the Simpsons living room is turned into the Evergreen Terrace subway station. And the art style on this one is really cool. I do like that one a lot. There is a note in this script. It's mostly for us, but essentially it just says in the script, the lines are written with the regular characters' names. So instead of like Paul Bunyan, it'll be Homer, or instead of like Connie Appleseed, it'll be Lisa, for instance. I just thought that was interesting and might make for some fun script reading events today. We'll see how that goes.
Did you have, before we get started, did you have a segment that you thought was your favorite out of these 3?
Oh, Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn for sure. But I like growing up as a kid, I was a huge Mark Twain fan. I actually dressed up as Mark Twain for a like history class once. Like we all had to like dress as a famous person, and I dressed up as Mark Twain, or Samuel Clemens as his friends knew him as. And yeah, I loved his stories, and I was particularly fond of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. So seeing the Bart and Nelson posed over that story that I already knew and love, 100% my favorite.
That is,
even though it's not even never, hell.
I never knew that about you. You like have a brain and learn stuff. I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah, man. I used to be an honor student, bro. I now it's called the tax test in Texas, but at the time I took it, it was a TOS test. I aced that when I took it.
I mean, I think it was like a 90-something% got honors on all those tests back in the day. But I
didn't get honors. I didn't miss a single question.
Oh, okay. Well, you got honors.
No, I said I aced it. Like I got 100% correct on that test.
Yeah, but that means you also got honors during the
yeah. I mean, nobody gives a shit about that. Like 90% of people get honors.
No. We need to change like how it's like the Academy Award winning director and the Academy Award winning actor. Now we need to have like the TOS test certificate winners like on.
Oh yeah, because I want everybody to know that I peaked in 10th grade.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that gets more people drawn in to listen if they know there's 2 super smart people leading this discussion.
Yeah. If you want the intellectual conversation of somebody with a sophomoric brain, then yes, you've come to the right place.
He never learned a single thing after that day.
What about you, though? Since you asked, that it's not even close for me. Like, I love that 3rd segment so much. What about you? Is there a favorite for you?
I don't like the 3rd segment because of how it ends, and I still felt the same way.
I love that joke at the end so much.
It's so morbid, and now the
traditional laying of the bodies.
It's so morbid, and I remember as a kid, I was like, "Oh my god, they died!" Like it just, and I still had those feelings even rewatching it as an adult, and I was like, why do I feel the exact same way? And it's just those emotions just come back. So that's always disturbing to me that like you see them sink to the bottom of the water. They have all these guns cocked, which how can they fire like that underwater? And then all of a sudden
do that
they're
in a
just
post
dead.
9/11 world is all I'm saying.
But my favorite one, like I honestly think they're all good, which usually on the trilogy stuff, there's one that just really irks you and you don't like it at all. And these are all fun stories, but the second one by far is my favorite because of all the dang shooting buffalo jokes. Dude. And like it's just so random.
I love the buffalo. Buffalo testicles. No, they're apples. Oh, gross.
But like when they spit the seeds out, I think like
singing, cleaning my gun with the safety off. Like all of it is perfect. Yeah, I agree. This is a very strong 3-episode, or 3-part episode or whatever you want to call it. I think that the only reason I put such a strong emphasis on the third one is because, again, it did connect with a lot of the things I loved as a kid. So I find it strange that you did not like it. And I love the dark ending, frankly. It's one of my favorite jokes in the whole episode today.
But again, I'm like remembering from when I was a child seeing it. Or I guess a middle schooler at this point. No, it would have been high school. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, this came out in 2001. I mean, we were freshmen in high school at this point.
So, yeah, it was disturbing that they died. I didn't like seeing poor Bart die. Even though you don't see him die.
Wow, just put this together, and maybe not as significant as the 9/11 thing, but this is the last Simpsons episode that aired before I got my driver's license. When the Simpsons comes back on the air in season 13, this guy has a legal permit to drive.
And therefore never saw another Simpsons episode again.
Honestly, it really did slow down. I bet you we're going to find a significant dip in my watching, because I will tell you, when I got a car, my TV watching went down significantly.
I took a peek next season.
I have not yet, but on that note, I do feel like we're bringing up a lot of interesting things that we could talk about for next week on our season finale spectacular. We're not done with season 12 yet, Rich. We gotta.
It's a joke. This really is a spectacular.
It's in this guys. We like rip our mask off, Jamie Kennedy style. Ha! You've been next. Also a dated reference.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the only show Miles would watch while he was driving around in the car.
I did love me some Jamie Kennedy Experiment. I won't lie, but I didn't watch it while driving in the car. I didn't get to do that until they invented smartphones.
That technology didn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We used to have to text by feeling the numbers on our phone.
It made it easier and arguably more safe in my mind.
I argued that point yesterday, actually. Never had to look at my phone.
I don't doubt it at all, yeah.
We're off topic. Let's talk about Paul Bunyan.
Have we ever been on topic at this point? I don't know. I'll go ahead and say I did get the commentary for this one. The DVD I have, I guess, is scratched specifically in a manner that just fucks children of a lesser clod, but is fine for this one. Either way, I was happy to have it. It had Mike Scully, Bob Anderson, Max Cross, Don Payne, Matt Selman, John Frank, Ian Maxone Graham, Joel Cohen, Tom Gamble. And as you can tell by the fact that I'm winded after reading all those names, this is going to be another commentary where there is a lot of fun between the writers and producers and animators all like kind of ribbing each other and just having a good time with the script, but not a ton of insight. I have a little bit, but not a ton of insight, though I will say that right off the bat, as we see the episode open with the Simpsons at the airport about to head to Delaware, that is a direct callback to the episode Behind the Laughter, where they basically at the end of the episode, they kind of joked about how like, oh, they just keep making the Simpsons go everywhere. Like, what's next? Delaware?
I want to see Wilmington.
And I want to visit a screen door factory. Yep, that's Delaware. But as the Simpsons are checking their tickets, Homer notices something that rubs him the wrong way. There is a $5 airport tax on this otherwise free trip to Delaware, and Homer is not having it. He demands that the flight is free or he will not be on that plane. And when he insists by waving his fist, we immediately cut to the Simpsons hopping on a moving train as Homer is like, stupid anti-fist shaking laws.
If a man can't stand for anything, he'll fall for anything, though, right, Miles? So
There you go. Instead of the Simpsons are going to Delaware, it becomes the Simpsons are riding the whale. The whales.
So after they can't get on the boxcar,
Tell me that's not a script. I'm just saying. In the next 24 seasons, the Simpsons are riding whales at some point. I'm just ahead of myself. I'm not wrong.
You've unlocked the secret to the Simpsons writing room after 30-something years.
Just find a rhyme.
We write about it.
Bart is very excited about the train ride, specifically the dead hobo, which he pokes with a stick. But turns out he's not dead.
Morning, folks.
What are you gonna do to us?
Don't worry, I'm not a stabbing hobo. I'm a singing hobo.
And the hobo picks up a banjo and starts to sing a friendly little tune.
Nothing beats the hobo life. Stabbing folks with my hobo knife. I gouge them with...
Excuse me, hobo, could you play something a little less unnerving?
Sure. I was just having a little fun with you nobos. Here's a ballad that'll set fire to your trash can.
I love the term nobos and wish more people in my life would call me as such, but it is what it is.
Damn it. One of my alternates to the opening of the show was, well, that's from 4 or 5 weeks ago, was to call you the man, the myth, the nobo. And I wish I would have gone with that to make your life better.
It's all good, man. Opportunities lost. But fortunately, we have plenty more episodes of The Simpsons to review together to make it right.
I don't know after this one, they might not be able to come back from this.
What's kind of interesting is that this transition, it sounds like almost for a minute like we're going to get like a musical episode like we've had in the past where there's going to be a little bit more songs from the hobo. But basically, it's just kind of a transition shot where he sings like the very first line. Once you listen to my tale that's 10 stories tall about a king-size wooden named Bunyan, comma, Paul.
Which I love that rhyme there.
Yeah, it's really good. But then the song basically just cuts off as we actually cut to a log cabin where Abe Simpson is excited about his new son, but his kid is like the size of the cabin, which makes the next line where he goes to his wife and is like, "How you feeling, honey?" And she's just like, "Whiskey." I mean, like, for size comparisons, this is impractical in the sense that like literally the baby is like the size of a house, like, or close to it, I should say.
So the woman is dead is what you're saying.
Should be. Yeah. I mean, I think it would have been like an Ant-Man and like getting bigger inside of Thanos type of scenario.
It would have been like episode 1 of season 3 of The Boys.
Yeah. Maybe with less penises, but same concepts. Same concepts. Born mighty big, he continued to expand thanks to a hopped up pituitary gland. So I guess we do get more singing intertwined, and I just didn't really put that together at this point as the script corrects me mid episode.
I feel like they slowly go away from that as we go further. Maybe.
I agree. This is also, I guess, a good time to say that the reason this episode exists to begin with is because Fox actually asked them specifically a while back, a couple seasons ago, when we talked about the Simpsons Bible stories, which may have been season 11 or 10. I'm not quite sure. Regardless, that was actually when Fox themselves, noticing the popularity of the Treehouse of Horror segments, actually started requesting that the Simpsons do more 3-part episodes. So the Bible one was kind of the experiment, and then this is like the follow-up that they came up with. And even in the writer's room, they laughed about the fact that, they're like, oh yeah, tall tales, there's plenty of those. And then they couldn't even think of more than 2 and had to go into literature, essentially.
That's fantastic. His body grew big, but his brain stayed small. He was a tree chopping, branch stopping, house crushing Paul. We kind of get like a little, what is it called? A montage sequence. You always gotta fade out in a montage, by the way. But we get a montage sequence that essentially shows like giant Homer growing up and like getting into like a snowball fight with Nelson, where he literally crushes him with an ice cap of a mountain.
He's eating flapjacks that take the entire town to work on them. Lenny and Carl are like skating on pallets of butter.
And then when they call for breakfast, he's like excited and he's running towards them, but he's literally stepping on every house on the way to them.
Yeah. He's obviously a literal menace to their society.
But you can tell he doesn't mean to be. He doesn't know he's doing it.
Yeah, he's very childlike and innocent. He's just really, really big. Which I think is a relatively common trope in a lot of stories. I mean, even Elf, I think of like the opening segment of Elf, like Buddy the Elf is so big. He's not intentionally causing problems, but he causes a lot of problems.
So you're saying Godzilla was just misunderstood. Calm down, Miles.
Yeah, that's Godzilla for you.
Miles would understand it better if it was written by Mark Twain.
Yeah, Samuel Clemens. I'm a friend. Oh man. So after Homer devours those flapjacks that are literally the size of a swimming pool, we get a faint voice from Lenny calling out, "Hello, can anyone hear me?" And we cut to inside Homer's stomach where Lenny seems stranded, but groundskeeper Willie comes swimming up from the stomach acid apparently, and he's got good news.
I think I found a way out. It's not pretty, but it'll do.
And then we cut back to the townspeople where Mo is kind of leading a group of people that are just kind of tired of the situation. Man, we got to do something about Bunyan. We're going bankrupt. We're just feeding and clothing the guy, not to mention the Crushins.
Hey, I said we get him drunk and drag him out of town. Same way we got rid of Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Yeah, that's a person who I'm not on a first name basis with.
Remember how we said there's not really that many deep cuts anymore? I think that might be the only one in the episode.
And for what it's worth, I did just Google it, but she is a author, actually, an American writer, mostly known for Little House on the Prairie series. So that's a
very deep cut.
A very deep cut, yeah. Though honestly, I imagine everybody in the Simpsons writer room grew up watching Little House on the Prairie as they were kids. So
I just feel like
it fits.
It fits the style that they're going for too for the episode.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's also the type of joke where even though I just Googled it and figured it out, it still hits whenever you watch it because you're just like, oh, we know they're making fun of a random person.
Mm-hmm.
The townsfolk literally get a wagon load of beer to bring to Homer, who they call the greatest friends a giant's doofus can have. Or no, that's what Homer calls them. Excuse me. But he drinks it down, and this was my first thought whenever they pitched the idea of get them drunk. It's like, how are they going to have that much alcohol? And Skinner is absolutely amazed that it only takes one beer to take Mo down. But we find out that might be because Mo had a little secret. He roofied Homer essentially with giant roofies.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess when you have a giant amongst you, you should have giant everything.
Yeah, but then Mo takes it creepy because in traditional Mo style, he immediately goes from that to like, yeah, I got to go down and see some women at the whatever. And it's like, oh God, he's about to go roofie people.
Yep.
With giant roofies.
And then he also just didn't want to have to lift the dead weight of a passed out giant Homer. So I think that's literally impossible for the townspeople to actually do, but it's the Simpsons, so we'll let it slide. The dead weight of slide would be impossible.
Right. Yeah. They literally were not able to slide him barely outside of the town. But when Homer wakes up, he kind of gets the hint essentially that like they don't want him there.
Yeah. Poor Homer. What's he going to do?
Well, Paul was just as lonely as a man could get, so he took out his axe and carved himself a pet.
And it's a nice blue ox, Miles. I bet you didn't see that coming.
And we get a kind of fun little segment here. I like this segment a lot where we kind of get a history lesson with Paul and his blue ox going all over the United States. Named Babe. And then he's going all over the United States and they're creating things like Death Valley when they drink up all the water and whatnot, or all the alcohol from one. They smoke cigars and drink brandy, which creates the Great Smoky Mountains. There's one that's just they get really drunk and stomp a bunch and spill a bunch of beer. So I think the like caption underneath is like big holes with beer in them National Park.
Yeah. Beer holes.
But then we also see like the time that Homer fought Rodin and immediately cut back to the rail car.
Excuse me, Miles and Hobo. Paul Bunyan never fought Rodin, and his size is really inconsistent. I mean, 1 minute he's 10 feet tall, the next his feet are as big as a lake.
Hey, who's the hobo here?
I'm just saying.
He continues, again, I am wrong, dude. I said that there was not going to be singing through this, and there is a lot more singing than I remember for whatever reason. He just intertwines a line here and there. But the
did such a good job effortlessly flowing it together that you forgot it was a song at all.
It doesn't feel like it. You're 100% right. So he continues. Now, Paul and Babe were a mighty fine match, but the man had an itch that an ox couldn't scratch. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And Homer is riding Babe, but he sees Marge, who he'd much rather be riding.
Is that how that goes?
Well, she's plowing a field. You know how it goes.
Isn't it he's supposed to plow the field and she's supposed to ride?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Not that we're square. I like the way they...
Go ahead. Nothing I said was going to make this better.
I was going to take the sex a little bit further on that one. I like the shot that they do here because, like, Homer's like, ooh, and he looks really far away and sees Marge, and so she's purty. And then Marge looks up while she's plowing her field and sees Homer from a really far distance away and goes, oh, look at how handsome he is. And they do that like classic scene where they run towards each other, and from the vantage point, they just look like normal human sizes. And then as they get closer, you see like the fear in Marge's face when she realizes how big that Homer is. And then starts running the opposite way, and then Homer keeps chasing her until he scoops her up. But I really like the way they did that animation part.
It was a really cool, like, forced perspective look where, it was really fun. I agree. And the moment where Marge, like, goes from, like, romance to fear is pretty hilarious in some ways. Mm-hmm. But Homer is actually able to woo her, it seems. They agree to go on a date, and, you know, we get pretty fun little moments. Like, for instance, Homer suspends Marge from a swing that's actually just on his finger. And he's like actually just like blowing lightly to make her swing back and forth. He takes her to he literally opens up the top of a museum to give Marge a teddy bear. He twists a hoop from a barrel to give her a ring, which is far too big for her, of course.
Yeah, it fits over her whole body.
Like wears it as a bracelet, or as like a waist, like a belt.
Hula hoop.
As the script points out, though, this relationship, like all others, has its own unique challenges.
We've been together a long time now. When are we gonna,
Soon. I just need a few more yoga classes. I don't know if there's enough Kegel stretching in the planet for that, but who knows?
There's Miles again with the sex.
I didn't write the script. I'm just saying. I'm making observations.
Sexy observations.
And speaking of observations, Professor Freak.
Hoy, the meteor's heading straight for us with the fire and the impact and the 100 chance of pain in the glavin.
God has sent us this fiery kill rock to show us his love. But they realize that there's only one person who can save them from this asteroid, and it's Homer the Giant.
Oh, I get it. When I'm crushing and killing you, you don't like me. But when I can save your life, suddenly I'm Mr. Popular.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Woohoo! I'm Mr. Popular.
So Homer makes a baseball bat out of a giant log, and the plan is to just bat the asteroid away from Earth.
After it's already on Earth, because he's not that tall.
Yeah. Well, that's inconsistent, as Lisa pointed out.
Yeah.
In this case, he's one of the mountain-sized Homers.
And I'm pretty sure
Come
the meteor would
on,
just
right
burn
across
straight through
the-
that log.
Come on, right across the plate. Let's see what you got, huh? This one's for the little cripple boy that I crippled.
And then he wants to get a good luck kiss from Marge before he swings at it. So he bends over to kiss her.
And the meteor lands right in his pants, essentially.
Ass crack.
Yep. So actually, on that note, I've mentioned this a couple of times on the commentary track because apparently it is like a really big deal to them. But this sequence once again got the writers, the commentary track, talking about the golden age of, in their opinion, The Simpsons, when they could show male ass on the show. And it wasn't censored. And it just was apparently a game changer for them in the writer's room.
I mean, you don't see full ass here. You just see the crack.
Well, they can't. They're saying that you couldn't even show the crack now by today's standards, and it riles them up every single time. It's borderline hilarious because they're just like, back in my day, I could draw a man's yellow ass and put it on my television. And then
just picture.
Go
ahead. Double jinx, triple jinx. I just pictured that like the Fox censors have like a set rule where it's like, well, if the man is 5'9" or taller, you can't show full ass. And since Homer in this scene is 10 stories tall, rule. That's way too much ass for television. How many more times can we say ass in this segment?
I don't know. It's an assy segment, I guess. That's what happens sometimes.
Very classy.
There's something else that we said about I've said this on another podcast when we talked about this, but it cracks me up, so I'm going to say it again. They always laugh about the fact that they censored the fact that they cannot put male nudity, like male asses essentially, on screen after season 12, but they can still show them in reruns, which means that all that they've done is banned that from being on the late night show that's probably going to air in the evening. And they're putting it on the reruns, which are airing in the afternoon and are far more likely to be viewed by children.
Yeah. It's not supposed to make sense.
They're
old people making these rules.
Sense. Yeah. So anyway, it bounces off of Homer's ass.
Sorry for being ageist.
And hurls it far away. It lands on another large city that we don't know or care about, so the crowd cheers.
Yay!
And that's how Paul Bunyan started the Great Chicago Fire.
Boy, that story had everything. A giant, house crushing, a meteor.
Townspeople?
Yeah, Marge is excited that townspeople were in the story. You got any more tall tales?
Well, I suppose I could spin up a few more yarns, but first, who wants to give me a sponge bath? I'm filthy.
And the family all look at each other trying to figure out who it's going to be when everyone knows when they look at Homer who it's going to be.
And Homer like immediately is like, all right, but your next story better be worth it. And we literally see Homer start to get a bucket and sponge and very reluctantly watches this oboe. And that breaks our first act. He is naked, but that brings us to the end of our first act, which is at 8 minutes and 34 seconds. I guess that, with the first story and the intro at Delaware Airport, that one definitely got a little more than its fair share on this one by about a minute and a half.
It felt like the story was longer too, but I think it's just an optical illusion of time.
I'm curious to see what this next one's going to do, and we'll see how kind of evenly balanced they are. Because I would guess that first intro is like 2 minutes ish, which would mean that that's like 6.5 minutes for this. And that would actually pan out that each of them could be between 6 and 6.5 minutes. It'll be interesting. Let's find out here in a little bit.
Go.
We open up our second act after the sponge bath. The hobo continues entertaining the family. Okay, you ready for another impression? This is Southside Gates daring into Tin Can Tilly.
Ooh, this will be good.
And Homer's like way excited about this hobo imitating two other hobos that he has never seen or heard or met. So really has no way of knowing or any context to enjoy this situation. But nonetheless, Homer is giggling as the hobo does his impression. Who put the beans in my bindle? Oh, I am so tired of you saying that you put the beans in my bindle. It just makes me so... Do you ever shut up? Kiss me, fool! And then he starts doing the thing where he like hugs himself and makes kissy noises. That's pretty good. I feel like I nailed that.
And I feel like I thought at one point they started saying something. He's like, hold on just a second. And then he goes back to it. I thought he did that, but maybe I'm just misremembering.
Maybe, honestly, it may have just been glanced over in the script. Who knows? But
we hear another tall tale, Miles?
We can. And I've got a story just for you, little girl. It's the tale of Johnny. Connie Appleseed.
Oh.
And I love that works on Lisa, honestly.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
It always goes back to Lisa's allowed to be the smartest person in the room pretty much always, but she's still an 8-year-old girl. And that's one of those like 8-year-old girl, like, you know, it got altered to appease her basically. And she fell right for it. But I love it. It's perfect.
It's good representation by the hobo.
Well, back around 1840, the great pie known as America was still cooling on the windowsill, and everybody headed west for a slice.
Good metaphor.
Homer is, we cut to basically, it looks like Oregon Trail version of The Simpsons. I would be shocked if somebody doesn't die of dysentery. There's definitely going to be some buffalo killed, and Homer is very, very happily singing as we open up on the story.
Cleaning my gun with the safety off, safety off, safety off. Cleaning my gun with the
bang.
Whoopsie.
Dad, you just killed a poor defenseless buffalo.
A poor delicious buffalo. He'll be dinner for the whole wagon train.
Bang. Why'd you kill another one?
Dessert.
But to be fair, we see that like Homer's decision is very popular amongst this whole, like, whatever you would call this. What is it? Yeah, like a convoy, maybe? Convoy.
Yeah.
Let's go with convoy. Like caravan. Everybody on the caravan might be more appropriate, but everybody involved is...
Yeah, I did.
Everyone involved is very happy to have all this buffalo meat. And you
can see a pile of dead buffalo like on the side when the shot first opens up too. There are a bunch of dead buffalo over there already.
They're clearly killing them at will. And Lisa is the only one that seems to be concerned at all. And she even gets laughed at when she's like, we might wipe out the entire species. I think it's Dr. Hibbert is just like, wipe out the entire species. That's ridiculous. As Lisa is walking around among the field of dead buffalo, she's kind of thinking of the, solutions to the problems. And she's like, why is it that we have ladders that can put a man on the roof, but we can't find a renewable source of food?
We also skipped the part where when Bart was eating his buffalo steaks in the last scene, he's like, oh, there's a bullet. And he spit the bullet out of his mouth, and you heard a buffalo off screen die.
And he dies. Lisa actually starts to hear her name being called in the wing, or I should say Connie. Again, that's the script situation. Connie is hearing her name, and she sees a lone apple tree standing on the prairie, and she's inspired that if they could grow apples, they would have renewable food to eat other than buffalo. And she starts to gather them up in her dress and run back towards the convoy. But we pan out to see that it was actually Hans Moleman who is trapped in like mud or quicksand or something.
Like
and he's
quicksand mud or something.
Yeah. And he's like, no, help me.
And he's gone.
And he's done. Mom, Dad, look what I found.
Oh boy, buffalo testicles.
No, Dad, they're apples.
What?
Again, that's such a ridiculous joke, but I love it so much. Well, that's it. I don't want anything to do with this wagon train of death. Either switch to apples or go on without me. And she closes her eyes for a moment, and when she opens them up, they have left without her. You'll be sorry. And she throws an apple at the wagon train as they roll off screen, but the apple hits another buffalo off screen and apparently kills it. The hobo explains that Connie traveled across the nation planting apple trees and even changed her last name to Appleseed. A little Connie icon on the old map traces her route, showing apple trees popping up in her wake. And meanwhile, her family changes their surname to Bufflekill. We also do another map shot where we're basically seeing like the parallel route across the Great Plains, but this time it's marked with little buffalo skulls in the wake.
Man, Connie should be like, I don't know, 25 before you start seeing these apples. I don't know how long it takes an apple tree to grow.
Yeah, it takes a minute.
This is definitely a very tall tale for these trees.
Like maybe like Connie Appleseed the third will get to enjoy the fruits of her labor.
Yeah. But the buffalo kills are going to still be buffalo killing.
Yeah, well, until they're out of buffalo to kill. We cut to a morning on the wagon trail where Homer crawls out of his sleeping bag, which is obviously made of buffalo hide. He's hungry because he hasn't had buffalo in 6 hours. Marge, how about whipping up some buffalo sausage, huevos, buffaleros, and some fresh squeezed buffalo juice?
The buffalo are gone. I think you shot them all.
And you cut across and see just nothing but bones and fragments of buffalo everywhere.
Oh, Connie was right. We wiped the entire species. What have I done? What have I done?
Hey, calm down, Pa. There's still 2 of them left. Bang, bang.
What have I done? What have I done?
And at this point, they no longer have a source of food, and winter is approaching, which is also going to make it difficult to grow apples for what it's worth. And the hobo continues to narrate, with the buffalo gone, the starving settlers were driven to cannibalism.
You're the fattest buffalo kill. Okay, everybody, dig in.
And we see that like the whole townspeople have like forks and knives, and they are quickly surrounding Homer. But Lisa comes in to save the day. Stop, everyone! I've got apples, delicious, nutritious apples, and there's enough for everyone.
Sweet! It's like a hootenanny in my mouth.
We're saved!
It's a miracle.
Hooray for Connie Bufflekill!
And then you see Mo come out from like beneath Homer's robe. He's like, what? So we're not eating Homer?
Yeah, he's still excited about it.
You can see a piece of flesh on the end of his fork, for what it's worth, too.
Yeah, he's already done some stabbing and tasted.
Mm-hmm.
It's listed here that it's Mo, but I'm almost positive that it's actually Chief Wiggum who implies that Homer's the fattest one there. And because I wrote down on my notes that I thought that it was a really odd choice for Wiggum to be the one to be like, Homer, you're the fattest one in the party, when Wiggum's clearly like double Homer's size.
That does sound familiar. I thought you were going to say Wiggum was the one eating Homer, but I know that was Mo for sure. But I think you might be onto something, Miles. I think these scripts occasionally might have errors in them.
Yeah, I'm thinking that might be correct.
This is the biggest conspiracy to ever hit BDD.
Yeah, the only one also, but that's not true. We've probably made up some bullshit before.
That's our tagline. We probably made up some bullshit before.
Oh man. So we cut back to modern day where I guess they decided not to eat Homer, and the hobo explains,
we're seeing in this story.
Yeah. And thanks to that little girl, today you can find apples and everything that's good. Apple wine, apple whiskey, apple schnapps, apple martinis, Snapple with vodka in it, apple nail polish remover.
Don't forget apple sauce.
Yeah, I suppose you could grind some pills into it.
Oh.
And that brings us to the end of our second act, and I think we just figured out where our mystery time stamp is, because, yeah, that was a very quick 5-minute. That felt like a lot happened in 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, when you're part of the Buffalo family, a lot does happen.
I think it's probably the way that they use the map transitions to kind of like plot the course of things that are happening and little things like that. I feel like they were able to imply a lot more happened in this one than actually did.
Another optical illusion.
It's an illusion, Michael. So we open up Act 3 with the train crossing the Mississippi River.
Oh, look out there, folks. That's the mighty Mississippi.
Big deal.
Reminds me of a tall tale about two scalawags rafting down the Big Muddy. Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn.
Hey, that's not a tall tale. It's a book by Mark Twain.
Look, let's just do this thing. I feel like I'm doing the hobo's voice as the voice of the sheriff down in Florida that kept arresting the Simpsons for killing the alligator. And I can't get it out of my head now, so I apologize.
My hobo voice has been wildly inconsistent this entire podcast, so I have no idea what I'm doing with it.
I feel like your hobo voice has been pretty spot on, Miles. You'd make a good hobo.
Thank you. I'm no nobo, but I'm very good at hoboing.
You're no nobo, but you are some hobo.
Oh, man. So this episode, or this segment, I should say, opens up with the classic scene from Tom Sawyer with the whitewashing of the fence, where in the book, Tom uses his wit to essentially trick or con his friends and other kids in town to paint a fence for him. In this case, Nelson, who is the Huck Finn character, just basically bullies them into doing it by pushing their face into a bucket of paint. And sure enough, we basically see within a few moments an entire line of kids with white face, their faces have been stuffed in white paint, all painting this fence.
Yeah, it's a good visual gag for sure.
Oh yeah, and the fact that Milhouse is the first one to get picked on is also very funny in its own way. He's got the old timey schoolboy shorts and hat and whatnot. It's great.
The fancy hair.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that when all the kids with the white faces are painting the fence, Bart's just standing back and looking at him. And he's like, ha, 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 I still got it. And he didn't even do anything.
Right. Just before we even get into this one, I'm going to say that I want to remind everybody that Nancy Cartwright does both Bart Simpson and Nelson. So the vast majority of this episode, or this segment, again, I'm sorry, but of this segment is just Nancy Cartwright talking to herself, which we've talked about her. We've talked about Hank Azaria doing it. There's several of the voice actors that do Dan Castellaneta, of course. There's so many of the characters that do so many voices, or so many of the actors that do so many voices, that this is something that happens quite a bit. But I think that it's often my favorite scenes in a show. Sometimes when you have that one actor just really getting to a heavy dialogue, it's really fun and makes a standout moment. And the commentary track themselves, specifically talking about Nancy in this one, said that specifically with these two characters, when she really gets into it with Bart and Nelson and some of the adventures that they go on, it's really fun to watch her because she literally just gets completely lost in these characters. It's like she almost disappears, as they put it. And it's just these two coming out through her, essentially.
Sorry.
Don't make it weird, Richie.
It's the way that you started. I wouldn't have even done that, but it's because I heard I got the script on my computer right now, but I heard the tone change in your voice, and I just pictured you having this shitty ass smile on your face.
That's called self-control, and you should learn some of it.
I got to say ass again too, but I could hear it in your voice, and it cracked me up. It got me. I think, to go along with what you said, though, I think another reason that you probably enjoy these so much, as most people should, is because that usually means it's two characters getting to do a scene together that you don't always get to do scenes together as well. Because most of the time it's multiple members of the family and whatnot. So in these instances, it's two characters that do have screen time together in the past, but this is a story just about the two of them. So it's always, we've talked about in the past, back in the day with shows like Big Bang Theory, it's almost like the Penny and Sheldon stuff was always the best kind of thing. Like the ones that don't always go together, getting to go together right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's
especially
I think that's great insight.
Especially with the Hank Azaria characters, because that's always the background characters getting to do it.
Yeah, you're 100% right there. With Hank in particular, he does so many of just those side, tertiary characters even that are just there for an episode or, a couple here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I like that they kind of keep going canonically with The Simpsons in a weird way, but basically there's always a connection, it seems, with Lisa and Nelson. And obviously in this story, it's it's Nelson is Huckleberry Finn, and Lisa's not herself either. She's whoever she is. But Lisa and Nelson had the episode where they like briefly went on a date, and it seemed like they actually had a romantic connection. And I think that we've come across a couple of instances where they just seem to still have like a little bit of a connection with each other. And I think that's kind of sweet in a fun way.
It's kind of like a non-reset where they just always have this little flirtiness between them after that first encounter. Like just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, actually, you're right. That is breaking the reset rule.
Yeah, when Lisa had the bully, the episode that we won't mention, she went to Nelson to ask for help, for protection. And they did have a little bit of a connection even in that scene.
Yeah, 100%. I was thinking of that very scene when I was thinking of when I'm like, yeah, there's been a couple of instances. That's the one that jumped out for sure. So it's probably just those two. But regardless, I'm glad it's there.
It's there.
Yeah.
It adds.
We see Nelson as Huckleberry Finn. He's like playing on a fence, walking on his hands and just, being a kid. And Lisa is correcting him. Now, Huckleberry Finn, you get down from there. A body could break his neck.
I ain't afeard of that. I'll just get a new neck off of a cat.
And sure enough, Nelson falls almost immediately. And Lisa's there to comfort him. She is holding his hands. And just as that moment, Homer comes around and catches them holding hands and is powerful mad.
You know what that means, Miles.
Well, I like that Nelson's first response is like, I was going to let go eventually. And Homer seems like, oh, okay, well, if you were going to let go eventually, but just to play it safe. And we cut to a literal shotgun wedding where Homer is holding a shotgun to Nelson as they are getting wed in the church.
We are gathered here today to force this man, Huckleberry Finn, to holy matrimony.
Oh, Homer, how romantic. This reminds me of our shotgun wedding. And you hear like click, click of a shotgun being cocked in the background. And as the camera pans out, there's still Abe Simpson is still pointing a gun at Marge, which is not traditionally how the shotgun wedding goes, for what it's worth. Grandpa, we've been married for years. When are you going to put that gun down?
Well, I reckon you're right.
And as soon as he lowers the gun, Marge is out.
Peace out, Cub Scouts. Hang it all.
Reverend Lovejoy begins the ceremony. Do you, Huck, take Becky as your wife?
Hee-haw! Oh, wait, that's a donkey. Oink.
Which is also not a squeal, for what it's worth. An oink and a squeal.
I said oink, it counts.
An oink is not a squeal.
Well,
an oink is a different sound that a pig also makes.
Pigs go oink oink. Cow, chicken goes cluck, cow go moo.
That was my oink, Godzilla oink,
again. If Kung Pao Enter the Fist taught me anything, it's my barnyard animal noises.
That's fair. That's fair. Basically, we see that Huck has pulled a fast one. When they pull back his top hat, he's replaced himself with a pig in a tuxedo.
No wonder he was pooping so much.
Tom Sawyer and Huck are running away from the wedding party, laughing as they're being chased by the townspeople, leaving the pig back to eat the whole cake. I guess probably sharing it with Homer, I'm assuming.
Hee-haw.
That's your donkey again. I love it. We get the Tom and Huck on the... What's that?
I said, thank you for calling that out, Miles.
Hey, man. I just wanted to, you're the barnyard sound
animal expert.
I just wanted to make sure I was getting it correct. We didn't all have a speak-a-doodle to teach us the right noises, all right? We get a scene basically where Tom and Huck are rafting down the river, which is really straight out of like Tom Sawyer.
Down Missouri.
Yeah, and in Tom Sawyer, it's not Huck Finn. It's a character named Jim who he rafts down the river with. I don't remember if Tom and Huck actually like met canonically in the books. It's been a long time since
I don't remember that ever happening either, too. And then I felt the Simpsons make you do that double take where you're not quite sure.
Well, and then that Jonathan Taylor Thomas movie, Tom and Huck, came out, and I'm actually going to look that up real quick because I'm now curious. I really liked that movie when I was a kid too, and that actually did come out in 1995. I want to say that is where Tom and Huck originally got like paired together. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'll give Samuel a call and see what he said, what his intentions were.
So you're saying that the movie was a tall tale, therefore the hobo was reenacting the movie in this.
Maybe, yeah, dude.
Legit. I did get a little concerned when they started rafting down the river that we might have an appearance by Jim, and I was like, "Oh man, what kind of jokes are they going to make on this scene?"
But yeah. His name is he does have a full name, and it's very much of the 1800s. So yeah, I had that thought too. I think it was wise of them to just not touch that at all. Frankly, it doesn't fit really with the story. Dude, just looking at this Tom and Huck movie though, man, I need to give this a rewatch. It's got Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Rachel Lee Cook played Becky Thatcher, who's the Lisa character in this. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give that one a revisit.
What a good cast.
But yeah, we're getting this scene where they're floating down the rivers, and it basically they leave state lines. So they're crossing over from Missouri and entering Missouri. And almost immediately, the river goes from being a nice, peaceful ride to essentially a rapids and a waterfall. But on the way down, they get their picture taken, much like it's a theme park. And when they land at the dock, they actually have like the photos for sale.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Silas, this young lady's flashing her privates.
Well, I'll dispose of this.
And he takes the picture and tucks it into his jacket. Now,
all for Silas.
At this time, flashing your privates, quote unquote, was a woman showing a little bit of her ankle.
Mm-hmm. It was very, I was going to say the wrong word there. Scandalous, that picture, Miles.
Oh, yes.
Very scandalous.
Pocket worthy indeed. They boys are getting hungry and they start to go through their food. Tom is like, looks like we're out of corn pone, fat back, hard tack, fat pone, tord pack.
Any tack back?
Tack back?
I mean, fat tack.
Plumb out.
Oh.
So this in the commentary, they did say that they really just wanted to punch as much Mark Twainisms into this as physically possible. And Mark Twain very much was known for using a lot of like colloquialisms and just, dated vernacular, but not in the same way that Mr. Burns does.
Man, this Tom Sawyer really does pull the big words out of you, Miles. That was well spoken.
Thanks, man.
I've never been prouder.
Much like Nelson was shocked at it being cost 2 cents, I'm shocked that I was able to put together.
And it's
sentences.
gone.
It's over. Yeah, we're over. It's fine. Another joke that I really, really love here. We get the boys shopping at the general store with Apu, who's selling them things like whiskey, 3 plugs of tobacco, extra strength opium, and it all comes out to a grand total of 2 cents.
2 cents?
If you think my prices are high, go across the street. And I love this joke too. It's more of a visual gag, but across the street, there's a 99-cent store, which of course we all know is a place you can get cheap trinkets or a fun place to go when you're really stoned. But at this time, the 99-cent store was essentially like the luxury. It's selling like grand pianos and chandeliers. And it looks like it exclusively caters to the elite wealthy.
Mm-hmm. That is a good gag.
Yeah. We get a classic "thank you, come again" as they're on their way out, but Bart is complaining, or again, Tom is complaining that they put the lard pone on top of the fragile egg pone, and so it's giving them leaks. But they realize pretty quickly that they have bigger problems than leaky pones because they're both wanted. Nelson for marriage dodging and Bart for moonshining, which is not the act of brewing alcohol legally, but in his case, mooning people.
Mm-hmm. It's a picture of him showing his butt.
And on top of that, the wedding posse that's on the hunt for Huck is actually tracked them down and are currently at the general store that they were just at. So the boys actually grab their own wanted signs and use them as paddles to get themselves out of trouble, basically. But they're now in a riverboat pursuit, or they're in a raft pursuit, I should say. And Bart gets the idea when they passed a riverboat that they could hang on to the sides and potentially they'll be able to get away as long as nothing draws attention to them hanging off the side of that riverboat.
Old Man River. And
it's actually Hibbert as a riverboat captain in this case, who comes out and sings a just beautiful rendition of Old Man River, the type of thing that's so booming and bellowing throughout this river valley that the entire townspeople take notice. And of course, Tom and Huck are literally hanging off the railing right below him. So unfortunately, their plan is failed.
Poor guys, what are they going to do?
But
well, there's a riverboat in front of them.
They try to like flip off of the like giant paddle wheel and like it throws them high into the air. But unfortunately, they cut right into the riverboat's lounge where we see Krusty telling some very topical jokes.
Well, I see President Fillmore's in the news. Glug, glug, glug.
And that's when the boys come crashing through the glass ceiling. And the bartender, Mo, is actually, they land at the bar, and Mo's just immediately like, well, what'll it be, boys?
Just 3 X's, my man.
Give me 5. And the 2 jugs that Mo pulls down, the bottles are literally labeled 3X, like XXX and XXXXX. So he pours them both a shot, and Nelson gets irate. This ain't no 5X whiskey. I can still see the bar. I can still see this bar keeps a no good cheat.
Cheat?
And that causes everybody in the bar to pull their guns out and aim them at each other randomly because there's all sorts of gambling and fun things happening in this riverboat casino. Mo tries to calm everybody down.
Yeah, all right. We all got derringers, so let's just put them away. Nobody here is a cheat.
Cheat?
Ah, jeez.
And he takes Duck under the bars. Everybody just starts shooting. But luckily, these are just like muskets with tiny little BB-sized bullets, and they're more or less just bouncing off of things.
I don't think the Derringer was known as an effective killing weapon back in the day, Miles.
I like this little line here when Nelson's like, man, those Derringer bullets are weak.
Powerful weak. And like while Bart and Nelson are saying that, you can see a couple bullets like bouncing off
of them.
Bodies.
Yeah. Mo actually throws them overboard, though, telling them lights out and stay out. Stay lit out. They sink to the bottom of the river, and somehow the search party is just waiting for them, standing at the bottom of this river with guns drawn and a rope, a hanging rope ready. Yeah. So we cut to the funeral, which I absolutely love, and Richie apparently found too dark. Lovejoy is giving the ceremony as we see Bart and Nelson, or again Tom and Huck, are kind of like watching their own funeral, which again is a like famous scene from these stories. This something that happened in the books, and then Tom and Huck as well. Let us pray for the souls of these dearly departed young men, Huckleberry Finn and Thomas Sawyer.
And then you see Bart and Nelson, and you're like, oh, okay, good. They've got a scheme here.
They've got a big smile on their face. Yeah, like they look like they're scheming. Now for the traditional lowering of the bodies into the coffins.
And that's the part that's just morbid because their bodies, they even bonk each other and make a noise like there's nothing there.
And that's it, dude. Like they drop those bodies into the coffin and it is back to the train. Like that is the end of the story. And the hobo's even like, and that was Tom and Huck's last adventure.
I like that story because I was a judge.
And you hear then the train announce Delaware.
Well, this is our stop. Would you like to come sightseeing with us?
We're going to visit the place where J.C. Penney sends their damaged merchandise.
No, thanks. I'm going to keep on riding the rails, swapping stories for sponge baths. I believe I told 3 stories.
And he holds up a wet sponge and squeezes it in a very threatening manner.
Oh, I'll meet you in Wilmington.
And Homer gets back on board with the hobo, and he's like, close the door, which gives very bad vibes.
It's creepy.
It's so creepy.
But the Simpsons do a clever thing here to make it less creepy, and they've done this in the past before too, at like numerous times where you can't see anything, but it's just Dan talking.
You
And
can
it
hear them
almost,
having the conversation. Yeah.
yeah, and it almost makes it believable, well, it makes it a lot less creepy.
It does. The fact that you can hear their conversation and it's relatively like, Homer's like, raise your arms. Okay, the other one.
I do 400 sit-ups a day.
Oh, it shows. I was going to say something, but I thought it'd sound, weird.
Oh, not at all. I like when people say nice things about my body.
And it's important. And it's important to feel good about yourself. Okay, spread your toes. Oh, you know how much glass is in here? And they do something interesting as the closing theme plays. We actually get still shots from the scenes from the show, but some of them are very clearly not actually part of the show, including, for whatever reason, a shot of Kodos and Kang, which is just fun. And also the shh at the end of the credits is replaced by Homer saying, "Oh boy, buffalo testicles." And that brings us to the end of our third act, right at the 21-minute mark. I do want to say, since you brought it up, I think it'd be a good time to say, too, that whole last scene, that thing that we just said that made it less awkward, that was entirely ad-libbed by Dan and Hank. So they just kind of let them go and have fun. And I think they did a really good job of keeping it funny with a hint of creepy without going over the line where it was more creepy than funny.
And that just makes it more enjoyable too, because that just fits it so much better. That's how they did it, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. But that does bring us to the end of Simpsons Tall Tales. Richie, is there anything else that you or that book of yours want to bring up about this episode?
I still feel that the very last moment is morbid.
Okay.
It's still put a sense of, even though I knew it was coming, I was still like, man, it still rubs me the wrong way, but that's kind of the point. So like, I get it. I still stand by the fact that all three of the stories are very fun in this episode. And like Paul Bunyan is something I never will go out of my way to read or listen to, or I think there's that one movie I saw with the Tall Tale people all came together because the boy found all three of them. Like, wasn't one of them like John Smith or the dude that tried to beat the machine, and then Paul Bunyan, and then I don't remember who the third character was in that movie because there's not that many Tall Tales. But outside of that movie that I was taken to as a kid to see, I'm not going to go out of my way to see anything about Paul Bunyan or Johnny Appleseed.
I remember enjoying those, and I do remember seeing that movie, but I rented it on like VHS from like Blockbuster back in the day.
Exactly. But like, this was fun. They did a good job of making these stories entertaining. And it's because it's the Simpsons characters acting like these characters, but that's what made it so enjoyable. Like, it makes you, at this point in the Simpsons history, it's like, man, you can mash them up with anything and I'd sit down and watch it.
And I mean, if you look through like their history of their now nearly 700 episodes and all their comic books, they probably have matched up with just about everything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, your point being that they're always enjoyable. I do have one more fun fact from the commentary that I've been holding on to, because this, I think, would have been an absolute game changer. Hank Azaria did the voice of the hobo in this episode, but that was actually not the original plan, because Jim Carrey had reached out to the Simpsons and said that he was interested in doing a voice, and they actually got him on board to do this bum role. Like, he was excited and on board to do it. But just unfortunately in 2001, Jim Carrey was a hot commodity, and he was just not able to, it was not something that they were able to work out with his like management, essentially, to get the time to do the recording, which is a real interesting letdown, because for one, you would think if a guy like Jim Carrey was like, I want to do The Simpsons, they would make it happen. Like, they would go to him, or, whatever they could do. And they didn't really go into the circumstances of why it didn't go through, but they said very much so that Jim was like he liked it. He read the script. He was excited about the role. And it just unfortunately never came to be.
I'm going to give the staff the benefit of the doubt and assume that they did try everything humanly possible.
I would agree with that.
Done. Can you imagine 2001 Jim Carrey being on The Simpsons? Like, that would have been a huge deal to everybody, especially us.
In this role too, just playing like a random hobo, I think he would have had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, that'd have been real interesting to see how you portrayed that.
I feel like, well, Hank did a fantastic job, and I mean, we already complimented the lines like the riffing with Homer, Dan Castellaneta. I just think Jim Carrey would have brought such a different energy. It may have completely changed the episode, honestly.
It would have, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, man, that is going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddler Review show. As always, we appreciate you guys tuning in, sharing the show with your friends, just downloading it in general, and supporting us on Patreon and all those other fun things. Thank you guys for listening to this one, and yeah, we appreciate it. Richie, where can they follow us?
You can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. You can follow myself at TheWiz_Kid23. And as always, you can follow our show at Best Darn Diddly. That is DIDDLY.
That concludes season 12. So the next episode that we'll have to talk about will be season 13, episode 1, which is Treehouse of Horror 12. But of course, before we get to that, Richie and I will be back again with you next week with the season 12 finale spectacular.
Spectacular! Miles, don't worry. There's still 2 buffalo left over there.
Bang! Bang!
Don't worry, there's also 2 pigs left over there.
And until next time, study your animal noises.